The Grand Assembly of the Zenith Accord had convened once again. The vast chamber, a sprawling construct of hovering platforms and glimmering energy strands, stood as the greatest diplomatic hall in the known universe. Representatives from thousands of starfaring species gathered here to deliberate matters of conquest, diplomacy, and trade. It was the heart of galactic order, at least that's what they told themselves. At the center of the assembly floated a holographic display of a small blue world, Earth. A planet that had, until recently, been little more than an afterthought to the grand empires of the cosmos. But now it was at the heart of a heated debate. The humans are a primitive, violent species, hissed Archdominus Krex of the Zelther Dominion, a reptilian warlord race known for their ruthless efficiency in battle. His scaled, four-armed form loomed over the central platform. They are divided, warlike, and reckless with their own world's resources. They are not fit for independent rule. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Zelther had crushed hundreds of lesser civilizations under their talons. Their fleets were vast, their military doctrine unmatched. The Dominion proposes an intervention, Krex continued, eyes gleaming. For the sake of galactic peace, humanity must be brought under control. Their expansion must be managed. At the mention of intervention, a low, rhythmic clicking noise echoed across the chamber. The sound came from the Mari, an insectoid species with a hive-mind society. Their representative, Queen Speaker Zitha, leaned forward, her mandibles clacking. The Mari agree, she said. Humanity is disruptive. They do not adhere to a single ruler, nor do they understand galactic hierarchy. We have intercepted signals, internal conflicts, wars of ideology, destruction of their own kind. They are chaotic. Their existence endangers the Accord's stability. More murmurs of agreement followed. The Zenith Accord had long maintained order through conquest and controlled assimilation. Humanity, with its independent nations, unpredictable alliances, and technological unpredictability, was a threat. A united force like the Zelther or the Mari could bring Earth under control, pacify its people, and integrate them into the Accord's structured rule. Yet not all were convinced. From a far-off corner of the assembly, a small, cloaked figure took the floor. They did not stride with the same arrogance as the Zelther, nor did they click and hiss like the Mari. Instead, they moved with the grace of someone burdened by knowledge that terrified them. I oppose this proposal, the figure said, their voice soft but steady. The murmurs in the chamber died down. Few recognized the speaker at first, but when they pulled back their hood, gasps of recognition spread through the hall. It was Sorna Vel, a highly respected diplomat of the Varani, a species known for their deep wisdom and foresight. But Sorna looked different. The calm confidence of a Varani ambassador was missing. In its place was something rarely seen in the assembly. Fear. Krex's scaled lips curled into what could only be described as a smirk. Ah, the Varani wish to defend the humans? What could possibly compel your people to stand against the Accord's will? Sorna hesitated, their silver eyes scanning the faces of the assembly. Because, they said, you have no idea what you're about to do. A silence fell over the chamber. Sorna took a deep breath. You call them primitive, but they have built weapons that could turn their planet to ash in seconds. You call them warlike, yet they have withstood every catastrophe their world has thrown at them, natural or self-inflicted. And you call them chaotic, but that chaos is what makes them dangerous. Queen Speaker Zitha chittered in annoyance. They have no interstellar fleets. No quantum warforms. No planet breakers. How can they possibly be a threat? Sorna closed their eyes as if trying to find the right words. Finally they said, you think because they are divided they are weak. But you are wrong. If you attack them, they will unite in a way you cannot comprehend. They will fight. They will innovate. And they will win. Krex sneered. Win? Against the might of the Dominion? He laughed, a cold and condescending sound. Your fear is misplaced, Varani. Sorna's voice was barely a whisper. No, it isn't. The council erupted into debate. Some scoffed at Sorna's warning. Others were curious but unconvinced. The Zelther Dominion and Mari Hive pushed for immediate invasion, citing the Accord's long-standing doctrine of control. But the Varani diplomats' words lingered. As the meeting adjourned, Sorna remained seated, staring at the hologram of Earth. They had seen something the others hadn't. Something terrifying. Because they had been to Earth. They had met its people. And they knew what was coming. The moment Sorna Vel left the Grand Assembly Hall, their hands trembled. The fear they had hidden during the debate was bubbling to the surface. They had spoken the truth, but they knew it would not be enough. The Accord's war machine was relentless. The Zelther Dominion and the Mari Hive had already begun mobilizing their fleets. It was only a matter of time before Earth was designated a target, and once that happened, nothing short of a galactic catastrophe would stop them. As Sorna walked through the polished obsidian corridors of the Accord Central Station, their personal comlink chimed. The voice on the other end was barely above a whisper. They didn't listen, did they? Sorna closed their eyes, recognizing the voice instantly. No, Captain Dunn. They didn't. A heavy sigh crackled through the channel. Damn it, said Captain Elias Dunn, commander of the Archangel, one of Earth's first experimental interstellar warships. How much time do we have? Sorna's voice was grim. Days. A week at most. On the other end there was silence. Then Dunn's tone changed. That's all we need. Sorna shivered. Earth wasn't defenseless. The Accord thought humanity was a disorganized, backwater species barely capable of space travel. That was the only reason they had even considered an invasion. If they knew the truth, if they had any inkling of what humanity had been preparing, they would have done everything in their power to avoid war. Humanity had seen this coming for decades. The whispers of an incoming alien intervention had been monitored, debated, and prepared for. What the Accord did not understand was that Earth's greatest strength was not its technology. It wasn't its warships or nuclear stockpiles. It was its ability to adapt. Dunn's voice returned, sharper now. I'll put the call out. If they want a war, they'll get one. But I need you to do something for us, Sorna. The Varani ambassador swallowed. They already knew what was coming. You want me to delay the Accord's decision? We need time, Dunn confirmed. Even a few more days could change everything. Sorna exhaled. I'll do what I can. The call ended. For a long time, Sorna simply stood there, staring out the massive viewing window into the void of space. They had always known humanity was different, but it wasn't until they had lived among them, watched them endure, that they understood why. Most species fought for territory. Most species fought for survival. But humans? Humans fought for each other. And that was what made them terrifying. The Dominion strikes first. 3 days later, the first Zelther warships arrived near Earth. They did not attack immediately. Instead, they took position in high orbit, looming like vast metal titans over the unsuspecting world below. The Zelther Dominion believed in psychological warfare. They wanted Earth's leaders to see their impending doom. Dominus Krex personally oversaw the operation from his flagship, the Bloodfang. He watched with cold satisfaction as Earth's orbital satellites pinged desperate distress signals across the planet. They will surrender before we fire a single shot, he declared. Beside him, a Mari commander chittered in approval. Humans do not understand true war. Krex nodded. That was the beauty of it. The Dominion had faced primitive species before. Earth would crumble just as the others had. Their leaders would kneel, their technology would be confiscated, and their people would be drafted into the Accord's labor force. A communication request flickered across his console. Krex narrowed his reptilian eyes. Finally, Earth was responding. He accepted the transmission, expecting a desperate plea for mercy. Instead, the screen filled with the image of an unshaken human woman in a military uniform. This is Admiral Catherine Holt of the United Earth Defense Force, she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned like ice. I suggest you turn your ships around and leave our system immediately. Krex bared his teeth in amusement. You misunderstand, human. We are not here to negotiate. You will surrender or we will burn your world. Admiral Holt didn't even blink. Then you've made a mistake. Krex leaned forward. Oh? And why is that? Holt's lips curled into the faintest smile. Because you assumed we weren't ready. A moment later, Earth's response began. And the sky ignited. The first retaliation. Earth had never been foolish enough to believe it was alone in the universe. For decades, humanity had quietly built its defenses. Not crude weapons. Not outdated technology. But something different. Something new. Something designed specifically to fight a superior alien force. The first counterattack came not from the planet's surface, but from the darkness of space itself. Stealthed orbital platforms that had been hiding among Earth's satellite network suddenly activated. Automated railguns, coil cannons, and missile batteries unleashed a hailstorm of fire upon the Zelther fleet. Krex's amusement disappeared in an instant. What? Explosions rocked the Bloodfang. The Dominion had assumed Earth lacked space-based weapons. They had assumed they would be attacking a defenseless world. But they had miscalculated. Badly. The first wave of attacks disabled 3 Dominion warships in seconds. Their shields, designed for long-range engagements, were utterly useless against the high-velocity slugs and kinetic strikes that pounded their hulls. Krex barely had time to react before another threat emerged. Ships. But not just any ships. Human ships. They were smaller than the Zelther warships. But they were fast. Unbelievably fast. Instead of engaging in direct firefights, they maneuvered like sharks, weaving between enemy formations and striking at weak points. The Archangel led the charge, its prototype energy weapons tearing into the Dominion fleet with brutal precision. For the first time in centuries, the Zelther Dominion was caught off guard. For the first time in history, an invasion of a pre-warp species had failed. And Earth had only just begun. A new reality. As the battle raged above, Sorna Vel stood in the Accord's council chamber, watching the live feeds with a sense of grim inevitability. The war had begun. And there was no stopping it now. Sorna turned to the stunned faces of the galactic representatives. The same warlords and diplomats who had laughed at the idea of humanity being a threat now watched in horror as Zelther warships burned. "I warned you," Sorna whispered. No one spoke. Because for the first time, the Zenith Accord realized something terrifying. The humans were not just defending themselves. They were winning. Dominus Krex had never felt fear before. Not like this. The Bloodfungus Bridge was a cacophony of panicked voices. Officers scrambled to re-establish control as Earth's warships wove through their ranks like wraiths. Explosions bloomed across the void, tearing Zelther vessels apart with merciless efficiency. This wasn't a war. This was an ambush. A trap carefully laid by a species the Accord had deemed primitive. But there was nothing primitive about the Archangel as it tore through Dominion lines, its railguns and energy lances striking with pinpoint accuracy. Krex bared his teeth. Signal the fleet. Regroup and counterattack. He was cut off as another explosion rocked the Bloodfang, sending several officers sprawling. The ship's shields were down. Oh. The answer came a moment later. From Earth. The planet itself strikes back. For centuries, the Accord had viewed planetary invasions as a simple affair. The target was always unprepared, its defenses limited to crude ground-based systems. Earth was different. In a matter of minutes, every satellite in orbit reconfigured itself into an active targeting array. Deep space artillery batteries, hidden within the lunar surface, powered up and fired their first rounds. And then there were the drones. Thousands of them. Earth's military had long since perfected the art of drone warfare. Unlike crude ships, drones did not hesitate. They did not retreat. They did not experience fear. The Zelther fleet's formations collapsed as Earth's drone squadrons tore through them, overwhelming their defenses with sheer numbers. Krex's eyes widened as a realization hit him like a hammer. This wasn't a desperate defense. This was a counteroffensive. Earth hadn't been waiting for the invasion. It had been baiting them into attacking. And now the trap was closing. A desperate retreat. The Zelther Dominion had never been defeated in a full-scale battle. Until now. Krex's fleet was in ruins. His warships, once symbols of galactic supremacy, were now burning wrecks scattered across Earth's orbit. And it was only getting worse. More human ships were arriving. Not just warships but carriers deploying atmospheric fighters and heavy bombers. Their technology was terrifyingly advanced, compact, efficient, and deadly. A transmission flickered to life on the Bloodfungus command console. Admiral Catherine Holt appeared once again. "You have one chance, Krex," she said, her voice calm yet firm. "Withdraw your forces or we end this." Krex growled, his pride warring with reason. He could still order an orbital bombardment. He could still hurt them. But even as the thought crossed his mind, another warning blared across the bridge. "Dominus. The humans have locked onto our reactors." Krex froze. They could target his ship's reactors? That was impossible. No species had ever. Then he understood. They had let the Dominion come. They had let them deploy. And in doing so, they had allowed the humans to analyze, predict, and dismantle their entire strategy. Krex's jaw clenched. This wasn't a war Earth had stumbled into. It was a war they had prepared for. With no other choice, Krex slammed his clawed fist onto the console. "All ships. Fall back. Now." The retreat was immediate. The surviving Zelther warships activated their emergency drives, fleeing into deep space. The battle for Earth was over. And the Accord had lost. The galactic reaction. Sorna Vel stood before the Zenith Accord's council chamber once more, but this time the atmosphere was different. There was no laughter. No dismissive glances. There was only silence. A silence born from fear. They had all seen the battle. They had all watched as one of the most feared war fleets in the galaxy had been obliterated by a species the Accord had underestimated. Sorna cleared their throat. "I warned you," they said. The words cut through the chamber like a blade. The Mari delegate clicked its mandibles nervously. What do they want?" Sorna exhaled slowly. "Survival." The Zelther Dominion had started this war. But the war would not end with their retreat. Because the humans had seen the truth now. They had seen what lay beyond their world. And they would not stop here. Dominus Crex had never known humiliation. Until now. The Bloodfang limped into Zelther space, trailing debris and leaking plasma from its damaged hull. The once proud flagship of the Dominion fleet was now a battered wreck, a symbol of their failure. As Crex stepped onto the War Council's grand chamber, silence greeted him. The assembled warlords, once his allies, now looked at him with barely concealed rage and, more disturbingly, fear. "What happened?" Supreme Warlord Zelkara hissed, her massive frame tense. "You were supposed to crush them." Crex's mandibles clicked as he struggled to find the words. "We underestimated them." Silence. Then a guttural laugh echoed through the chamber. It came from Varkesh, the warlord of the Zevnari. His violet carapace shimmered under the dim lights as he leaned forward, amusement dancing in his many eyes. "You underestimated them?" His laughter grew. "That is an insult to the very concept of war. The humans did not just win, Crex. They devoured you." A few warlords grumbled, shifting uncomfortably. Zelkara slammed a clawed fist onto the table. "Then we strike again," she roared. "We send every fleet, every soldier." No. The word was soft. Almost gentle. But it carried the weight of finality. All eyes turned to Sornavel. The lone Mari delegate was the only non-Dominion species in the chamber, and yet, at this moment, they held more power than any of the warlords present. Zelkara's eyes narrowed. "Explain yourself, diplomat." Sorna clasped their delicate hands together. "The Accord has reviewed the data from the battle. We have reviewed the humans' capabilities." They exhaled. "If we escalate, they will not stop. They will not negotiate. They will conquer." The chamber erupted into chaos. "Impossible. They are primitives. They got lucky." Sorna raised a hand, and to Crex's surprise, the warlords actually fell silent. "Have any of you," Sorna said softly, "seen what their world is truly like?" Zelkara sneered. "We have studied their history." Sorna shook their head. "You have studied fragments. You have studied wars and conflicts, but you have never truly understood them." They turned to a console and activated a projection. The room darkened, and the warlords found themselves staring at images of Earth. But not the Earth they had expected. This was not a world of weakness. This was a world that had survived extinction more times than they could count. A world of supervolcanoes, ice ages, asteroid impacts, and relentless, unforgiving evolution. A world where every species fought tooth and claw to survive. Then came the human wars. Cities turned to rubble. Continents scarred by nuclear fire. Societies that had fallen only to rise again, stronger, more resilient, unbreakable. "You look at them and see barbarians," Sorna continued. "I look at them and see something terrifying." They turned eyes dark. They have never known peace. And yet they have thrived. Zelkara's claws curled. "Are you saying we should surrender?" Sorna exhaled. "No. I'm saying we should tread carefully. The humans do not see this as mere politics. To them we are invaders. We are a threat." They gestured to the projection again. New images appeared, Earth's ships being built. Not just replacements for their losses but an entire fleet. Warships larger than anything the Dominion had ever seen, their designs optimized for deep space combat. They were expanding. Zelkara's face darkened. "They're preparing for war." Sorna nodded. "And if we give them a reason, they will bring it to us." Earth's countermeasure. Admiral Catherine Holt stood aboard the Archangel, gazing at the wreckage that still floated above Earth. The battle had been won, but humanity was under no illusions. This was only the beginning. She turned to her officers. "Status report." One of her lieutenants stepped forward. "Enemy forces have fully retreated. But long-range scans indicate fleet movements in Dominion space." He hesitated. "They are watching us, Admiral." Holt smirked. "Good." The moment the invasion had failed, humanity had shifted gears. The shipyards on Luna were now working around the clock. Mars' orbital defense platforms were being upgraded. The first interstellar dreadnought was already under construction, something no other galactic power had even considered. Earth wasn't just waiting for another invasion. They were preparing to take the fight to the stars. A message arrived, routed through diplomatic channels. It was from Sornavel. Holt raised an eyebrow and played the transmission. Sorna's face appeared, weary but composed. Admiral Holt, I do not ask for forgiveness. I do not ask for peace. I ask for understanding. Pause. You have shaken the foundation of the galaxy itself. And now, all eyes are upon you. The message ended. Holt turned to her second-in-command. Send a reply. What should it say, ma'am? Holt's gaze was cold. Tell them the same thing we told the Zelther before we sent them running. She leaned forward, her voice like steel. Don't start a war you can't win. The legend of humanity begins. Word of the battle spread faster than any hyperwave transmission. To the weaker species, humanity became a savior, a force that had stood against tyranny and won. To the warlords of the galaxy, humanity became a threat, an unpredictable force that had rewritten the rules of engagement overnight. And to the Zelther Dominion? They had made an enemy that would haunt them for generations. Because humanity had no plans to stop at defense. No. They were looking at the stars with new ambition. And they were just getting started. End of story. If you love this, make sure to subscribe to the Void Narratives for more epic sci-fi advent.